Welcome to Crime Stoppers. I'm your host, Chip Brown. Heartland Crime Stoppers is a community-based program designed to help law enforcement solve crimes by providing a way for the public to phone in tips anonymously and receive cash rewards of up to $3,000 for information that leads to an arrest, the recovery of stolen property, or the recovery of illegal drugs. Heartland Crime Stoppers is funded through the State of Florida Office of the Attorney General, Crime Stoppers Trust Fund, and through donations from the community. Citizens and local businesses make Crime Stoppers work. On today's show, we talk Florida Highway Patrol. The Florida Highway Patrol was established in 1939. They strive to achieve the core values of courtesy, service, and protection. It's their job to help ensure the safety and welfare of millions of Florida residents and visitors each and every day. The patrol is authorized for 1,946 sworn positions and 529 non-sworn positions for a total of 2,475 full-time employees. Joining us in the studio is Sergeant Steve Gaskins, Troop C Public Affairs Officer. Sergeant Gaskins, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning.
Now, you've got 22 years, and in your 22 years with the FHP, you've kind of bounced from Tallahassee to Fort Lauderdale and now over to the Tampa Bay area.
Had the opportunity to work in, South Florida, up in the Panhandle area, Big Bend area of Florida, and now here in Tampa for the last 10 years. So wonderful opportunities to meet a lot of good people and worked different portions of the state where there's different complexities.
Yeah. Now, as you were telling me earlier, that on the way over here this morning, as you're traveling over here, there's a wreck that happens literally right in front of you.
Yes, sir. Just sitting at a traffic light waiting to make my turn. Another driver turned left in front of an oncoming car, spun that car right around in front of me. So these are things we see all the time, especially in the Bay Area here where there's a lot of traffic, a lot of morning traffic, afternoon traffic, the rush hour periods where people are trying to get to their destination in a hurry, and people make split-second decision that can cost them big. So fortunately, no one was really hurt this morning, but still problematic in me getting to come see you this morning.
Now, interestingly, driving drowsy, as you call it, has a lot of the same effects as driving drunk.
A lot of this, what you see with a impaired driver, you'll see with a distracted texting driver, you'll see with a drowsy driver. You snooze, you lose is the campaign title. And again, yes, it can cost you big if you're not fully alert, paying attention to what's going on around you. And that's what we kind of keep trying to push out to people. So yes, put the phones down, make sure that you're alert, you're awake, you're paying attention, because a lot's happening just to begin with. If everything is going for you 100%, there's a lot around you going on as well. And if you're distracted, if you're drowsy, if you're impaired, you're going to miss something, you're going to have a crash, and hopefully not hurt yourself or somebody else.
Well, again, the biggest thing is probably also just your reaction time is slowed. And that half a second or 1 second can mean literally the difference between having a crash and being seriously injured or killing somebody and being able to take evasive action or to correct your whatever you were doing.
The reason we want you to be fully alert and paying attention is I want you to see the problem as far down the road as you can possibly see it. Whether it be a sinkhole, a crash ahead, a child crossing the road, a car coming at you in the wrong lane. I want you to see the problem as far out as possible so that you have time to respond and react to it appropriately. The more time you have to react, the better chances that you have to avoid a crash.
And if you're drowsy, then that means you're going to be delayed and just not see it. And
correct.
By the time you do, it could have some horrible
correct
results. So.
Make sure you get plenty of rest, even on a daily basis. People work long hours. I get that. Maybe they didn't get a good night's sleep the night before. They're drowsy in the morning on the way to work. And again, don't try to push the envelope because chances are you're liable to get into a crash.
I know there's a lot of issues, especially on vacation. Sometimes people will try to drive later or earlier than they normally would. And when you're driving, when the time your body is normally asleep, it's rough. It's rough on the body.
There's a lot of things that the physiology of the human body plays into, especially with your driving behaviors. You're interacting, you're a part of that car essentially. You're the brain of the car. And if the brain's not working correctly, then we're gonna have problems with execution on the highways. So again, long trips, especially vacation coming up. We have our next big holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas and those things like that, where people are gonna be traveling long distances to go see family. Hey, plan in advance, take an extra day off, especially if you're traveling hundreds of miles. Take an extra day to factor into your trip so you have time to stop, maybe just break up the trip, stay at a hotel, okay? Vacation and on the way to see family. And again, if you have other drivers with you, other people that can drive, switch off every hour or 2 hours. Take a break, get out, stretch your legs. Rationing out the driving responsibility.
Yeah, you don't want to hog the driving when you get tired. Let somebody else drive. Be on the safe side, and
Yes, sir.
there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Yes, sir.
Now, speaking from experience myself, I have sleep apnea, and didn't know I had it for a number of years. But I know that I would drive, I would just get extremely sleepy, and having to fight that. And it's amazing how many people that I know that have sleep apnea and have to have that because they just don't get a good night's sleep.
Caffeinated drinks, coffee, or whatever you drink to get yourself awake in the morning. Roll the window down, get some fresh air blowing in there on you. Little tricks like that can maybe make the difference to keep you awake and alert. And again, if you need to stop, pull over into a safe parking lot somewhere, and get out and stretch your legs, walk around for a few minutes.
Yeah, sometimes just a quick 10 or 15 minute little nap in a rest area that's safe, and
Correct.
feel a lot better just after that.
Yes, sir.
Now, we've also seen or heard a lot about a lot of hit and runs that have been in the area. A lot of those are not just your simple hit and runs, but these are hit and runs where people have been killed. I'm just kind of curious, are we seeing an uptick in that, or why are we seeing some of these things?
Over the years, the number of hit and runs across the state of Florida has increased. We're looking at roughly 100,000 across the state of Florida each year.
That's hit and runs
Hit
each
and
year.
runs. Now, the majority of them are property damage. There's still a fair share of injury hit and runs, and then of course we have typically, on average, 1 to 200 or more fatal hit and runs. And of course, our Bay Area here, as we saw late last spring, early summer, we had some very high-profile hit and run cases that were fatal. We had a young 13-year-old boy over in the Dover area that was struck and killed. We had a gentleman who was struck and killed while walking on I-4 here in Polk County. And those kind of behaviors are completely unacceptable. We do not leave people on the side of the road dead or dying. You would not want that for your family member, and of course, you wouldn't want that for somebody else either. So if you have a crash, don't take a bad situation and make it worse by leaving the scene. People leave for all different reasons. Maybe the license is suspended, they don't have insurance, they have a warrant. Maybe they've been drinking, okay? And sometimes they just don't want to deal with the problem and they just take off. And unfortunately, that leaves somebody behind to pick up the pieces. It's not fair to other people, and frankly, it's illegal. And if someone's injured or killed, you're looking at mandatory prison sentences of 4 years or more. And so there's penalties to be had when someone leaves the scene of a crash like that. But again, it's just not the right thing to do. So stop, report the accident, render aid, call 911. Fortunately, we have programs like yours with the Crime Stoppers that work very intimately with law enforcement, helping us get information where people can call in, as you said, anonymously, and give us the information that we need. Because in all these cases, we've recovered the vehicles, but we're still piecing together who the driver was. And that's the tough part, the tough aspect of a hit and run case, is frequently we can piece together and we can tell you what happened. We can even tell you this is the vehicle that it happened with, but I can't put the driver behind the wheel. And that's where I need somebody to take the time, do the right thing, call into the Highway Patrol, Polk Sheriff's Office, your local law enforcement agency, whoever is working the crash, or your Crime Stoppers, and give us the information that we need that can maybe tie this case together and give closure to the families that are grieving for people that were lost or injured.
Sergeant Gaskins, we're going to take a break for a minute and look at some of our cases, so stick around.
Yes, sir.
Crime Stoppers provides a way for local law enforcement to receive information on crimes while keeping the people providing that information anonymous. This effort increases tips, which in turn solves more crimes and identifies criminals in our community. Here's a look at some of our most recent cases.
The Bartow Police Department is investigating a series of thefts that have occurred around the city. Investigators are seeking help from the public to identify a person of interest and the vehicle in these photos. The pictures were taken on Highway 17 South. This pair has been involved in thefts from several Walmart stores from around the county. We are asking for the community's help in identifying them. On September 7th, our victim left a credit card at the Circle K located at 5600 Cypress Gardens Boulevard in Winter Haven. The card was on the register waiting for the customer to return when this guy saw an opportunity, reaching behind the counter and stealing the card. He then used the card at 4 different times around the city. On June 28, 2018, the pictured subject entered the Haines City Lowe's and selected a 10,000 BTU air conditioner. He placed it into a shopping cart while an unidentified female appears to distract the door greeter. He then pushes the shopping cart out through the garden center, depriving Lowe's of the $329 item. On September 14th, around 10 p.m., 2 unknown subjects broke into the Affordable Rides LLC in Haines City. Entry was gained by throwing a brick through a window. One of the subjects entered the office, while the second subject stayed outside. Thanks to all of your shares and tips, Lakeland police have identified this suspect as Kenneth Blankenship. He was stopped by loss prevention personnel at the South Florida Walmart in Lakeland for a theft. He pulled a knife on the loss prevention officer and fled. On August 5th, Demetrius Jones got into an argument with another man on 5th Street Northeast in Winter Haven. That argument turned nasty when Jones shot the other man twice and fled. Fortunately, the other man survived. Jones is now wanted on charges of attempted murder, armed false imprisonment, armed burglary, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and felony violation probation. Jones is 37 years old, 5'11", 225 pounds, and is considered armed and dangerous. On September 5th, our victim was selling an iPhone, and the agreed location to meet was in front of the Save-A-Lot in Winter Haven. The victim had the phone in his hand, and as he turned his head to look towards a vehicle, the suspect grabbed the phone and ran. He is seen in the video behind Applebee's. Remember to always conduct transactions from apps such as Let Go at a law enforcement agency. At approximately 6:03 p.m. on Tuesday, August 21st, a retail theft occurred at a Circle K located at 4415 Old Kathleen Road in Lakeland. The suspect grabbed 2 bags of Purina dog food and then fled the business without paying for the merchandise. The suspect fled the parking lot in a white color 4-door sedan, possibly a BMW. The vehicle was last seen traveling northbound on Galloway Road. Do you recognize this Porch Pirates vehicle? The driver is described as a white female with long hair.
If you have any information on any of the cases you've just seen or any information on an unsolved crime, please contact Heartland Crime Stoppers and leave an anonymous tip. The toll-free tip line is 1-800-226-TIPS. That's 8477. You can also leave an anonymous web tip by going to www.heartlandcrimestoppers.com and click on the Give a Tip tab, or by going to www.p3tips.com. Don't forget, you can download our free P3 Tips app on your smart device. Whichever way you choose to leave a tip, you will remain 100% anonymous. If your tip results in an arrest, the recovery of stolen property, or the recovery of illegal drugs, you could be eligible for a cash reward of up to $3,000.
Welcome back to Crime Stoppers. I'm your host, Chip Brown. The Florida Highway Patrol promotes a safe and secure Florida through professional law enforcement and traffic safety awareness. They patrol over 19 million miles of roads with more than 90 million visitors to our state each year. Joining us in the studio is Sergeant Steve Gaskins, Troop C Public Affairs Officer. Sergeant Gaskins, thanks for sticking around.
Yes, sir.
Now, one of the things that FHP really promotes now is a program called their ECI. Can you kind of tell us what that is?
Well, ECI is your emergency contact information. You can very simply go onto the flhsmv.gov webpage and you can enter your information there. When you renew your driver's license at any of the tax and tag offices, you'll be prompted for it. And all that does is it gives us a couple of names that we can contact in the event of you being in a crash where you can't speak to us. There's some reason why you're unconscious. Maybe you've been killed in a crash, unfortunately. But there's been times where we were unable to locate family members in a timely manner because we just didn't know how to get a hold of them. And this gives law enforcement a tool, and it's only for notification purposes. It's not for investigative purposes. Okay, so I can't take that information and use that to track somebody down. But we can reach out to family members and explain to them why your loved one's not coming home, or maybe they're in the hospital and they need you to connect the family member. Because in a time like that, of course, time is essential. And so it gives us that tool, all law enforcement, to help out families in a very strenuous situation. We're looking at 7-8 million people or more now being involved in the program. And the more people that do it, it'll help out law enforcement, because unfortunately you may be the bearer of bad news one day, and I want to be able to get to you in a timely manner and let you know. Again, not for investigative purposes, for notification issues only. And if you have the information on there and say you change addresses or you get a new phone number, go on there. It only takes a few seconds. Go on that website and you can update your status right away.
So as opposed to like when people change their license on their driver's, or change their address on the driver's license, which you're supposed to keep updated, a lot of people just don't do that because it takes time to go into the agency and get a new license and get it updated. They can do it online and keep it updated, but they still are required to change their address to a current address on their driver's license.
On the driver's license and your registration as well, 10 days and 20 days respectively. For the ECI program, that's something that you select to do. You're not mandated to do it, but we highly encourage you to do it. So again, if something happens, I can reach out to your family member and let them know that, hey, John Doe's been involved in a crash. He can't speak to you. He can't contact you right now, so I'm contacting you on his behalf to connect family members. So we encourage people to do it. It's not required, though.
I know this procedure came about from a young lady, Tiffany, who was severely injured in a crash, and it took 6 hours for them to contact the mother because she was an adult, but the address was her address on the driver's license, and by the time they tracked it down, by the time the mother 6 hours later got to the hospital, her daughter had expired. She was dead. And that's very traumatic, to be able to come in and see your loved one before it is too late.
That is where the program originated from. Yes. That and many other instances very similar to that. And as you see with my press releases that come out frequently, we don't release the name of the deceased or critically injured until family's been notified. That's our policy. We don't do that. And you'll see some of them that will often take days to reach family members to where I can update the press release and put out the name, for public records reasons. But again, it'll take days sometimes or longer to try to get a hold of family, simply because we can't find them. We don't know who to even look for. And that little information that would come along with when I pull your driver's record up, that little bit of information would save us a lot of work and save a lot of time and heartache to the family if you could help us out.
Yeah, it's very important. Like I say, it's not used for any other purpose except just for emergency contact information, which these families really are entitled to. And having received some information like that myself when my son was in the hospital, luckily they were able to get to his cell phone and call me. Otherwise, I don't know, because his address was completely different from mine because he's an adult, but they needed to contact me.
Well, a lot of people do what you mentioned, you brought up the cell phone, where they have like an ICE contact in case of emergency. And that's good, but the problem is if your phone is locked, damaged or destroyed or missing in a crash, if a car rotates around, overturns multiple times, I might not find that phone, especially in the middle of the night when it's dark. The phone may be damaged in the crash, and that might not be the solution to the problem. Whereas if you take the time to add this information to your license in the form of the ECI program, again, save us a lot of time and effort, and we can get your family to you quicker.
And that's very important, like we say. Now, another big aspect of the drive in Florida, we have a lot of teen drivers, and there's a lot of things that you have information that can really help as they develop, their skills, because it is a skill, and when teen drivers are starting, they're learning.
Well, as a father myself with a child that now has a learner's permit, I'm right there in the thick of it myself. And in addition to my law enforcement duties, it's impacting me directly because of him. Fortunately, I've got a very responsible son. He's doing a good job with the driving. But the fact of the matter is that driving is learned behavior. The longer you do it, the better you are at it. And so, unfortunately, those aged 15 to 24, they are our #1 target areas, that age group, for motor vehicle crashes, and it's one of the #1 causes of death for that age group across the country. Again, young, inexperienced drivers get out there. They're not used to how a car handles or how a road is going to impact them, a curve, how weather can impact, and how changing road conditions very quickly can impact what's going to happen just seconds down the road. Learning to anticipate the moves of another driver. You and I, we've been driving obviously for a while, and I'm accustomed to looking at an intersection. I'm like, I know that guy. He might pull out. I'm watching that tire to move. And another driver, a new driver, might say, I've got the green light, so I'm going to just keep going and throw caution to the wind and not understand and anticipate that, yes, even though I've got the green light, this guy might pull out in front of me, because I've seen it so many times. And until you have that experience, it's hard for that new driver to understand what we're talking about. To combat the problem, we have graduated driver's license programs where you start off with a learner's permit, where you can only drive during certain hours of the day. You have to have a licensed 21-year-old driver in the front seat with you, an alert, awake driver, that is, and because we've seen that too. And then as you transition into your full Class C driver's license, there's still restrictions that come into play. Times of the day, from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., you can't drive unless you're returning to or from work as a 16-year-old.
Yes.
As a 17-year-old, you can't drive from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. And so drivers, especially the new drivers, need to be aware of these restrictions, okay? It's not wide open to you until you turn 18 and you have a valid Class E driver's license. So the young drivers, the reason we graduate them so that they can learn to adjust to the changing road conditions and get from point A to point B safely. So as parents, or those of us responsible for children that are beginning to drive, you need to make sure that you set good examples in your driving. So make sure that you're not on the cell phone texting and driving. Make sure that you're not speeding. Make sure that you are wearing your seatbelt, that you're not impaired, that you're awake, you're alert, and paying attention to the roadway. Set good examples for our young drivers to avoid the tragedies that we see all too often with our teen drivers.
Yeah, and even though all the advances in vehicles today, backup cameras and side warnings, and you still can't depend on all that stuff by itself. You still need to use your own head, your own eyes, your own ears to look and to listen and just be aware of stuff.
Well, not every car is equipped with that technology. While the technology really helps out, the backup cameras being one of them, because a lot of crashes that we see are backing crashes. Okay, that's one of our #1 issues, that we see people back into stuff. If you fall into that state where you're always relying on that technology, the backup camera, and still not taking a chance to look back over your shoulder and make sure everything's clear in your blind spots, you're liable to have a crash. And unfortunately, especially if you've got young ones running around the driveway when you're backing up, we've seen a lot of unfortunate cases where children get run over. The sensors may not pick up on the child. The sensors may not pick up on an object that maybe is too low from the bumper, too high. The camera, it might not be in view of the camera. So it's really incumbent upon you. You're still the final authority, you the driver, that you need to look back and make sure your field of vision is clear and you can see where you're going.
Yeah, it's a tool the driver can use, but it is not the only tool. It shouldn't be the sole resource that you judge your driving
It
on.
augments your ability. It doesn't replace your ability.
Now, there are also some restrictions on team drivers who maybe get a ticket, maybe with a learning permit. There's a requirement that they must attend school. I mean, there's even if there's some suspicion of they have alcohol in the car or have been drinking, there's a lot of things that folks aren't aware of.
Yes, there are restrictions that can be placed on young drivers. Yes, you are required to stay in school or you can lose your license. Drug offenses, theft offenses. There's a lot of reasons why, not even just young drivers, but other drivers can lose their driver's license. But there's one specifically designed to restrict and keep them on the right track. That's what it's really designed for, because driving in Florida is a privilege. And if you don't do certain things, like you don't go to school, then yes, you're going to lose your driver's license. The points on your driver's record, for you and I, if you get 12 points in 12 months, you can lose your license, okay? And then it graduates up to like 18 points in 36 months. And there's a whole bunch of configurations in which you can lose your license, okay? Depending if you're that bad of a driver where you're getting multiple moving violations, you're going to lose your license for anywhere from 30 days on up to a year or more. For our young drivers, yes, there's a plethora of reasons why they can lose it, to include the alcohol offenses. So under 21, they shouldn't have any alcohol in their system at all. They shouldn't be around the alcohol. So if a trooper or a deputy, an officer pulls a vehicle over and sees, maybe beer cans in the back seat, he rules out DUI, being full-fledged DUI material, and says, I don't think he's under the influence to the point where I should arrest him, but I do believe alcohol is involved here. And we pull out our portable breath testers, and anything over a .02, which is a very, very small amount, anything over that, I take your driver's license from you. You lose it for 6 months. If you refuse to give us the breath sample, you lose it for 1 year. And that can be very expensive, okay, especially for young drivers. Because it takes a lot to insure a young driver.
Yes.
Because the insurance companies, they know everything we're talking about right now. They're very good with the math, and they understand that of any of the groups out there, the people more likely to be involved in a crash is age 15 to 24, period. And so that's why your insurance rates will skyrocket when your young kids become drivers in the family. With that in mind, this is where the young driver needs to take things like drinking seriously. First of all, don't do it. You're not eligible to do it until you're 21. And then secondly, definitely don't get behind the wheel of a car, because you can lose that license. And once you lose that license, and for that reason, for those kind of reasons, the insurance is going to skyrocket if they'll even cover you at all.
There's just so many things and so much information, and we didn't cover everything we wanted to, but thank you for the information, Sergeant Gaskins, and we thank you for what you're doing and what FHP does to protect our citizens.
Appreciate you, and we thank you for your help as well.
For more information about FHP, you can go to www.flhsmv.gov. Is that right? Yes. That didn't seem right. .gov. Okay. Let me try one more time. What is that, number 10 now, Mark? But who's counting? For more information about FHP, you can go to www.flhsmv.gov/Florida Highway Patrol, or join them on social media at facebook.com/FLHSMV. That's going to do it for this edition of Crime Stoppers. Keep in mind, Heartland Crime Stoppers is an organization that helps law enforcement solve crimes through anonymous tips and monetary rewards. It encourages a cooperative partnership between law enforcement, the media, and the community to ensure security and enhance our quality of life here in Polk County. For more information on us, you can check us out on the web at heartlandcrimestoppers.com or follow us on Facebook at Heartland Crime Stoppers Florida. Until next time, keep in mind that it's a crime, and you can help make sure that they don't get away with it.